It is most interesting to see how St. Martin makes the transition from what he has won through knowledge, through science, which is spiritual in his case, to politics, how he arrives at political concepts. For here he states a precise requirement, saying that every ruler ought to be a kind of Melchizedek, a kind of priest-king. Just imagine if this requirement, put forward in a relatively small circle before the outbreak of the French Revolution, had been a dawn instead of a dusk. Just imagine if this idea that those whose concepts and forces were to influence human destiny must fundamentally have the characteristics of a Melchizedek had been absorbed, even partially, into the consciousness of the time. How much would have been different in the 19th century? For the 19th century was in truth as distant as it could possibly be from this concept. The demand that politicians should first undertake to study at the school of Melchizedek would of course have been dismissed with a shrug. We shall have to be patient. It will not come about easily, especially in certain fields. And when the building of bridges is seriously tackled in a particular field, great obstacles and hindrances will be encountered. It will be necessary, above all, to build bridges in the fields encompassed by the various faculties, with the exception of theology. In the field of law, the concepts being worked out are becoming more and more stereotyped and quite unsuitable for the regulation of real life. But they do regulate it, because life on the physical plane is Maya. If it were not Maya, they would be incapable of regulating it. As it is, their application is bringing more and more confusion into the world. The application of today's jurisprudence, especially in civil law, does nothing but bring confusion into the situation. But this is not clearly seen. Indeed, how should it be seen? No one follows up the consequences of applying stereotyped concepts to reality. In the field of medicine, the situation is more serious. If medicine continues to develop in the wake of materialism, as it has been doing since the second third of the 19th century, it will eventually reach an utterly nonsensical situation, for it will end up in absurd medical specializations. The situation is more serious here because this tendency was in fact necessary and a good thing. But now it is time for it to be overcome. The materialistic tendency in medicine meant that surgery has reached a high degree of specialization, which was only possible because of this one-sided tendency. But medicine as such has suffered as a result. So now it needs to turn around completely and look toward a real spirituality. But the resistance to this is enormous. Education is the field which more than any other needs to be permeated with spirituality. As we have said often enough, bridges need to be built everywhere. In technology, although it may appear to be furthest away from the spirit, it is above all necessary that bridges should be built to the life of the spirit out of direct practical life. The fifth post-Atlantean period is the one which is concerned with the development of the material world. And if the human being is not to degenerate totally into a mere accomplice of machines, which would make him into nothing more than an animal, then a path must be found which leads from these very machines to the life of the spirit. The priority for those working practically with machines is that they take spiritual impulses into their own soul. This will come about the moment students of technology are taught to think just a little more than is the case at present. The moment they are taught to think in such a way that they see the connections between the different things they learn. As yet they are unable to do this. They attend lectures on mathematics, on descriptive geometry, even on topology sometimes, on pure mechanics, analytical mechanics, industrial mechanics, and also all the various more practical subjects. But it does not even occur to them to look for a connection between all these different things. As soon as people are obliged to apply their own common sense to things, they will be forced, simply on account of the stage of development these various subjects have reached, to to push forward into the nature of these things, and then on into the spiritual realm. For machines in particular, a path will truly have to be found into the spiritual world. I am saying all this in order to point out what difficulties today face the spiritual scientific movement, because so far there are no individuals to be found who might be capable of generating an atmosphere of taking things seriously. This movement suffers most of all from a lack of being taken seriously. It is remarkable how this comes to the fore in all kinds of details. Much of what we have published would have been taken seriously, would have been seen in a quite different light, if it had not been made known that it stemmed from someone belonging to the Theosophical movement. Simply because the person concerned was in the Theosophical movement, his work was stamped as something not to be taken seriously.